Can Israel defeat Iran without the United States?
No. But again, the Iranians, the Israelis know that, but they assume that we will come in one way or the other.
Well, one way or the other must mean air and naval. Could you even envision troops on the ground?
No. You could certainly insert special operators into Iran. I mean, this is an enormous country. It's the size of Western Europe. There are about 85 to 89 million people in it, something like that. And if you put that number of people into Western Europe would look almost uninhabited. So we can certainly insert special operations teams in there, and they can direct strategic attacks against, the Iranian armed forces and its population. But other than air and naval, no, that's all you're going to see.
What is your greatest fear with respect to Israel and Iran, Colonel, particularly if, for whatever reason, the Netanyahu government believes its back is to a wall?
I think that mentality is already taken root. Their view is that it's their way or the highway, and their way means that the entire region has to be subjugated or at least docile vis-a-vis Israel and accept whatever Israel does, which is always justified on the basis of their history and, of course, the Second World War. I think the greatest fear that I have is that once Iran is attacked decisively in some fashion by Israel, that we will involve ourselves and contribute to it. And when that occurs, Russia will intervene. Russia will not permit us with the Israelis to destroy Iran. Simply isn't going to happen. Those ties are very close. They're not just politically advantageous. They have economic foundations. And Russia is tired of us. We've tried to do enormous damage to them. We've succeeded in destroying Ukraine, but Russia hasn't forgotten, and Russia is not going to tolerate it. And that puts us in a difficult position because the Israelis may use, at some point, nuclear weapons.
That has to be the greatest fear, is their use of nuclear weapons. Says, notwithstanding what Prime Minister Netanyahu famously or infamously told the UN, where he had that cartoon of himself holding a bomb. The cartoon was of the bomb, not of himself.
Yeah.
Do the Israelis know that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon?
Yes.
And does everybody know in the region, governments I'm talking about, not people in the streets, that Israel does have many nuclear weapons, however they acquired them?
Yes. In other words, the Israelis have both the warheads and the delivery systems. The Iranians have delivery systems that could be configured to carry a nuclear warhead, but Iran is what you call a threshold nuclear state. In other words, it's reached the point where it could, in a relatively short period of time, perhaps weeks, perhaps months, build warheads that have nuclear capabilities. But they haven't done it. There's a fatwa that was issued some time ago banning it. They've refused to do it. The Russians have reassured them that, they will stand by them, but whatever you do, don't cross that threshold. They haven't. The same agreement is with the Chinese. The Chinese are, of course, standing in the background. They will support the Russians and the Iranians if they're pushed to do it because they're so dependent on the oil and natural gas that comes out of the Straits of Hormuz. But yes, everyone knows that the Israelis have this. And let's be frank, as Mr. Erdogan pointed out in one of his speeches a couple of months ago, the Israelis have frequently threatened the use of a nuclear weapon against people in the region. And he says, we know what you have, and we're not afraid of you. And I think that's the problem now. I think that the region is no longer afraid of Israel. And that's the greatest single danger as far as Mr. Netanyahu is concerned, because that means the Israeli notion of deterrence, which is total fear of what Israel can do, is absolutely essential. And if people are not afraid of it, then Israel will not survive. That's his view.
Colonel, are you fearful, or let me restate it, can you envision Prime Minister Netanyahu asking his war cabinet for their consent for him to use nuclear weapons delivered into Iran.
Yes, I'm sure that he would unhesitatingly use that capability against Hezbollah, because Hezbollah is probably at least as well fortified and dug in as the Ukrainians were in the Donbass. So, this view is we're not going to trade Israeli soldiers' lives for, half a mile or 2 miles of ground. We're going to essentially destroy it. When it comes to Iran, the Israelis have convinced themselves that there will be no security for Israel as long as any state in the region, specifically Iran, has the capability to go nuclear. They know that Iran is a threshold nuclear state, and Mr. Netanyahu has been very straightforward about it. We will not tolerate that. And I imagine they would use tactical nuclear weapons to try and destroy the underground facilities. Now, the Iranians have anticipated this. They've distributed their command and control. They have placed missiles in various areas. They have clusters, and they have a command and control system that's very redundant and designed under worst cases to operate independently. All of that is on the minds of the Israelis if they go in there. Plus the fact most of what they would deliver is probably going to be from the air. And if they're going to do that, they need U.S. Air Force refueling assets. We can obviously decline to provide those, but the Israelis also have submarines that can launch cruise missiles, and they too are nuclear capable. So, the Israelis can get at the Iranians in various ways. Will it work? I don't think so. Will it stop the war? No. Will it make matters much worse? Yes. And that's the great danger. I think Israel itself has from the very beginning put its very existence at risk when it doesn't need to.